For years, we've known there's some kind of link between nicotine use during pregnancy and health issues in children. But today, we're diving into a fascinating scientific detective story that finally cracks open a huge mystery. How does nicotine actually get inside a developing brain and rewire something as fundamental as our sense of hearing? So let's get into it because our investigation starts right now.
Okay, so here's the central mystery. The link is pretty well established. Nicotine exposure during development can lead to hearing problems. Things like having trouble figuring out where a sound is coming from or understanding what someone's saying in a noisy room. But, just knowing that there's a link, that's not enough for scientists. They wanted to know how. What's the specific mechanism? What is physically happening at the cellular level that's causing this damage?
And that's exactly our mission today. We're going to follow the trail of evidence that was uncovered by a team of researchers, piece by piece, to see how they pinpointed the exact cause and finally solved this really critical health puzzle.
Now, every good investigation starts by narrowing down the location. In this case, the scene of the crime was tucked away deep inside the brain's incredibly complicated auditory system. So, job number one for these scientists, find that location.
Their search led them to this amazing structure called the calyx of held synapse. The best way to think of it is as the brain's high-speed, high-fidelity sound relay. I mean, this isn't just any old connection. Its entire job is to transmit sound information with incredible speed and precision, which is absolutely essential for your brain to figure out where a sound is coming from in space.
And this image right here shows you exactly where they focused their magnifying glass. Right there, in the auditory brainstem, at this tiny but absolutely vital junction. Their hypothesis was simple. If something is going wrong with hearing, this super-fast relay station had to be a prime suspect.
Okay, so we've got our location. Now we need to meet the key players and understand how they're supposed to behave. And this is where the story gets really interesting, because it's all about this beautifully timed developmental dance that has to happen just right.
So meet our main characters, nicotinic acetylcholine receptors. Or for short, let's just call them NACHRs. Think of them as tiny docking stations on the surface of your brain cells. Normally, a natural chemical in your body docks here. But nicotine is a master impersonator. It can sneak in and hijack these exact same docking stations, turning them on when it's not supposed to.
Now check this out. In a healthy, developing brain, these receptors actually go on a little journey. Before a mouse pup can even hear, the receptors are mostly on the listening side of that connection we talked about. But then, after hearing starts, this crucial switch happens. They migrate over to the speaking side, where their job is to help fine-tune the signal being sent. It's an absolutely critical part of wiring the brain correctly for sound.
And you can see that whole journey laid out right here. Early on, the receptors are all bunched up on the listening side. Then, as the system matures, boom, they shift over to the speaking side. This is the normal, healthy blueprint. So the big question is, what does nicotine do to this beautiful, intricate blueprint?
All right, to catch the culprit in the act, the researchers set up a really clever experiment. They needed to see exactly what happens when you introduce nicotine during this very specific, very critical window of brain development.
So here's what they did. Using a mouse model, they gave them nicotine at precisely the right time, that critical pre-hearing phase from day 8 to day 12. The whole goal was to catch nicotine red-handed, to see if it was messing up that developmental dance of the receptors we just talked about.
And boy, did they find something. The evidence they collected paints this incredibly clear picture of how nicotine just completely sabotages the brain's wiring process. Let's look at the evidence.
This comparison right here, this is the heart of the discovery. In the nicotine-exposed group, that receptor journey was totally messed up. Instead of fading away like they should, the receptors on the listening side just stayed there, abnormally active. And the ones that were supposed to move to the speaking side to make the signal better, they just failed to work right. The whole system was thrown completely out of whack.
So what's the result of all this scrambled wiring? Well, you get weaker conversations between the brain cells. The electrical signals just get quieter, they're less reliable, they're less efficient. At this critical sound relay station, the lines of communication are basically broken.
Let's break down the evidence, piece by piece. First up, signal strength. This chart is basically measuring how loud that electrical conversation is between the neurons. And look at that. In the nicotine-exposed group, that signal was way, way weaker. The message just wasn't getting through as strongly. Second, there's the problem of reliability. It's kind of like having a faulty light switch that only works some of the time. This chart shows us how consistently that synapse actually fires its signal.
And once again, the nicotine group showed a major drop. So the connection wasn't just weaker, it was also totally undependable.
So here's the kicker, and this is so important. The researchers tested the inner ear, the part that actually detects sound, and it was perfectly healthy. This proves the problem wasn't with the microphone, so to speak. The damage was happening further down the line, in the brain's central processing center.
And all of this leads to a real-world measurable impact on hearing itself. This chart shows the quietest sound the brain is able to pick up. The nicotine-exposed mice had a significantly higher threshold. What that means is a sound had to be a lot louder for their brains to even register that it was there.
So, after following all the clues, from the scene of the crime to the behavior of our key players and the hard data from the experiment, we can finally deliver the final verdict in our little investigation.
The mystery is solved. It all comes down to this. Nicotine interrupts that normal journey of these crucial receptors. This completely sabotages the wiring at a high-speed sound relay in the brain, which leads to weaker, less reliable communication. And the end result is that central auditory processing is impaired. The brain literally needs the world to be turned up just to hear things properly.
The ultimate takeaway here is both crystal clear and pretty profound. Nicotine exposure during this critical period isn't just some temporary problem. It actively and physically rewires a fundamental circuit in the developing brain, causing hearing deficits that can last.
And that really brings us to our final question, something to think about. We've just seen in incredible detail how one single substance can fundamentally alter the wiring for one of our 5 senses. So it really makes you wonder, if this is what nicotine does to our hearing, what other intricate developmental dances is it disrupting inside the brain that we don't even know about yet?